He watched the most loyal allies turn into the worst enemies. All it took was one change in circumstances. Around Cenwalbai in Italy, Niccolò Machiavelli served as a diplomat for Florence. He met kings, generals, merchants, and politicians. He watched alliances form and break. He saw people pledge eternal loyalty, then betray each other weeks later. And he noticed something uncomfortable. That loyalty isn't what people think it is. It's not some noble virtue people have or don't have. It's conditional. Always, people are loyal when it serves them. And they stop being loyal when it doesn't. Understanding this makes you effective. Ignoring it makes you vulnerable. And Machiavelli wrote it all down because he was tired of watching good people get destroyed by thinking loyalty was unconditional, when it never is, when it never was, when it never will be. Here's the mistake most people make. They think loyalty is a character trait. That some people are loyal and others aren't. That if someone proves their loyalty once, they'll stay loyal forever. So they trust, they rely, they build on assumptions of permanent loyalty. And then they get blindsided when circumstances change and suddenly that loyal person isn't loyal anymore. And they take it personally, feel betrayed, get bitter. But Machiavelli would say you were just naive. You didn't understand what loyalty actually is. Loyalty is a calculation, not a virtue. People are loyal when being loyal benefits them more than being disloyal. When loyalty serves their interests, they're loyal. When it stops serving their interests, they're not. It's that simple. Not because people are evil, because people are practical. They do what serves them. And loyalty is just one strategy among many. It works when it works, and it doesn't when it doesn't. Machiavelli watched this constantly. A nobleman would swear loyalty to a prince, serve him faithfully, fight for him, die for him, allegedly. Then the political winds would shift. A new power would rise, and suddenly that same nobleman would turn on his prince, join the other side, serve the new power just as faithfully. And if asked, he'd have excellent reasons. He wasn't being disloyal, he was being practical. Circumstances changed, so his loyalty changed. The people who got destroyed were the ones who didn't see this coming, who actually believed loyalty was permanent, who trusted without understanding the conditions of that trust. They'd be shocked when allies turned into enemies, confused when lifelong friends became competitors, bitter when partners became betrayers. But Machiavelli wasn't shocked, because he understood that loyalty lasts exactly as long as it's mutually beneficial, not 1 second longer. He wrote about this in The Prince. He said, "Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities, that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." What's he saying? That people want to believe in loyalty, want to believe others will stay faithful. So they ignore the conditions, ignore the circumstances. And when those circumstances change, they're shocked. But they shouldn't be. They should have understood that loyalty was always conditional. They just didn't want to see it. This sounds cynical. But Machiavelli wasn't being cynical. He was being realistic. He watched nobles who lost power lose all their allies overnight. Watched merchants who went bankrupt lose all their partnerships. Watched leaders who showed weakness lose all their supporters. Same people, same relationships, but conditions changed. And loyalty changed with them. The smart leaders understood this. They didn't rely on loyalty alone. They made sure being loyal was always the best option for their allies. They created conditions where betrayal was more costly than loyalty, where staying was more beneficial than leaving. And as long as they maintained those conditions, loyalty lasted. But they never assumed it was permanent. never assumed it was unconditional. They knew they had to keep earning it. Keep maintaining the conditions that made loyalty the smart choice. The foolish leaders assumed loyalty was permanent, that past service guaranteed future service, that people who swore oaths would keep them regardless of circumstances, and they got destroyed. Not because their allies were unusually bad people, because circumstances changed and they didn't adapt. They relied on loyalty that was no longer beneficial for the other person to maintain. Now here's the key insight. Machiavelli isn't saying you can't have loyal relationships. He's saying you need to understand what makes them work. Loyalty isn't magical. It's not about someone's character or your worthiness. It's about whether being loyal serves both parties better than being disloyal. If it does, loyalty continues. If it doesn't, it ends. Simple as that. So, if you want loyalty, create the conditions for it. Make sure the other person benefits from staying loyal. Make sure betraying you would cost them more than staying with you. Make sure their interests align with yours. Do that, and loyalty is sustainable. Ignore that, and loyalty is temporary. No matter how much they promise, no matter how many oaths they swear, no matter how much history you have together. Let's make this practical, because you're probably experiencing this right now and not realizing it. Think about your job. Your employer is loyal to you as long as you provide more value than you cost. The moment that calculation changes, the loyalty ends. You get let go. And they'll have good reasons. Budget cuts, restructuring, market conditions, but the reality is simpler. The conditions that made loyalty beneficial changed. So loyalty ended. Same with you toward your employer. You're loyal as long as the job serves you. Good pay, good conditions, good opportunities. But if a better offer comes, if conditions get worse, if it stops serving your interests, your loyalty ends. And you'll have good reasons. Career growth, better comp, better culture. But really, the conditions changed. So loyalty changed. That's not being a bad person. That's being human. And Machiavelli is just pointing out that this is how it works. For everyone, always, so stop being surprised when it happens. Stop taking it personally. Stop thinking there's something wrong with people when they act in their... That's what people do. That's what you do. Understanding that makes you effective. Denying it makes you vulnerable. Or think about relationships, friendships, partnerships, even family. People are in your life because being in your life serves them somehow. Emotionally, socially, practically. And that's fine. That's how relationships work. But if those conditions change, the relationship changes. If you're no longer meeting their needs, they distance. If they're no longer meeting yours, you distance. Not because anyone's bad, because conditions changed. The people who get hurt are those who think relationships should be unconditional. That if someone cared about you once, they'll care about you forever, regardless of how either of you changes. But that's not how it works. People change. Needs change. Circumstances change. And relationships change with them. Understanding that doesn't make you cold. It makes you realistic. Here's the practice. Look at your important relationships. Work, personal, whatever. Ask yourself, what are the conditions that make this relationship mutually beneficial? Why does the other person stay? What do they get from this? And what happens if those conditions change? If you can't answer those questions, you're vulnerable. Because you don't understand what's actually holding the relationship together. You're assuming it's loyalty, or love, or character. But it's really conditions, benefits, mutual interest. And if those shift without you noticing, you'll be blindsided when the relationship ends. But if you understand the conditions, you can maintain them. You can make sure the relationship keeps serving both parties. You can adapt when circumstances change. You can keep the conditions that make loyalty the smart choice. That's not manipulation. That's awareness. That's how sustainable relationships actually work. Machiavelli also warned about expecting more loyalty than you give. He said, if you want people to be loyal to you, you must give them reason to be. You must serve their interests as much as they serve yours. Can't demand loyalty while providing nothing in return. Can't expect someone to sacrifice for you when you wouldn't sacrifice for them. Loyalty is reciprocal, or it's temporary. This is where most people fail. They want others to be loyal to them unconditionally. But they're only loyal to others conditionally. They want employees to stay through hard times. But they'd leave if a better opportunity came. They want friends to always be there, but they disappear when it's inconvenient. That hypocrisy doesn't work. You get what you give. If your loyalty is conditional, theirs will be too. So be honest about what you're offering, about what you're expecting, about what conditions need to be met. Don't pretend loyalty is unconditional when you know it's not. Don't make promises you won't keep when circumstances change. Just be clear about the deal, about what makes this relationship worth maintaining, for both sides. That honesty actually creates stronger relationships, because both people understand what they're committing to, what they're getting, what would end it. No false expectations, no hidden conditions, just clear mutual benefit. And as long as that benefit continues, so does the relationship. That's real loyalty, not the fairy tale version. The actual version that works in reality. Machiavelli spent years watching relationships form and break. And he saw the pattern. Loyalty lasts exactly as long as it's mutually beneficial. Pretending otherwise doesn't change that. It just makes you vulnerable to being shocked when reality asserts itself. But understanding it, accepting it, working with it, that makes you effective. Makes you capable of building relationships that actually last. Because they're built on honest conditions, not false promises. The people who understand this aren't more cynical. They're more successful. Their relationships work better, last longer, end less painfully. Because everyone knows what they're dealing with. Everyone knows the conditions. And as long as those conditions are met, trust continues. Not blind trust. Smart trust. Trust based on aligned interests, and that's the only kind of trust that's actually sustainable. Loyalty is conditional. Always has been, always will be. That's not a bug, that's a feature. It means you can create and maintain loyalty by creating and maintaining the right conditions. You're not at the mercy of someone's character. You're in control of the circumstances that make loyalty beneficial. Use that knowledge, and watch how much more effectively you navigate relationships at every level. Subscribe for more brutal truths about power.